Welcome to the Forging Authors Instruction Manual in Brief, a live lecture series for authors. These 15 topics were taken from the 90-plus topics included in the Forging Authors Instruction Manual, a guidebook given to Blue Forge Press authors. Taught by Jennifer DeMarco of Blue Forge Group, a Seattle Times best-selling and Bumbershoot and PNWA award-winning author. The series was taught to more than 1,000 authors over the summer and fall of 2025. All resources mentioned were accurate at that time, but should be double-checked if being accessed at a later date. And a quick disclaimer. Blue Forge Group is a 4-division, volunteer-run, 501c3 nonprofit that was founded in 1989. Blue Legacy, EIN 83-43-07421. This information is being shared to educate and empower authors. There isn't just one way to launch a career in the arts. These methods are simply what we encourage here at Blue Forge Group. Era 1. Preparing. From writer to author.
Anyone when I say that, from writer to author. What I'm just simply trying to do is create a lexicon that we can all agree with. Anyone who wants to can write. And that does mean that anyone who wants to can self-publish. And self-publish still has publish in it. You're still published. You're printed and you're out there, but you're not published by a publishing house. Okay, just like if you use Amazon's KDP or Ingram Spark to self-publish. They call themselves publishers, but we all know they're not a publisher. They don't have staff. They don't have an editor. There's no one saying whether or not your book is good enough. But it's still published. It's out there. A writer can self-publish. A writer can write anything they want to write without any restrictions. And author understands the restrictions in the industry. And author understands what they can and can't have on a front cover. And author is someone who's like, I want this to be my career, whether it is my first career, my second career, or just something that I am going to approach as if it's a career. I'm going to approach from a professional perspective and move from there. I don't care, some people say, I don't care if I only ever sell 10 books. I have an office that I have set up. I am keeping this professional because I need that schedule. I need that routine. That's what's important to me. That's also completely okay. So again, not trying to put down writers. I really, truly believe that writing is something that can heal. It's good for everyone. And especially people that hate spelling. I think it's great. But being an author, it's like choosing to go into private practice as a therapist. All of the responsibility is on your shoulders. So that's all I mean. It's two different paths. And what I'm going to be talking about today is being an author. I'm not here to teach you guys to write. I assume everyone in this room already knows how to write. Is it a hobby or a career? The first thing you have to ask yourself. Now, if it's a hobby, do you still want a publisher? Sure, you can still have a publisher, even though it's a hobby. But maybe you tell your publisher, I'm not interested in touring. Because you don't really want to be traveling a whole bunch of places. So you're almost like part-time. Engaged or insular? Now, we've all heard about insular authors, those recluses. George R.R. Martin, famous. How many interviews? Like maybe one interview every 5 years. I'm like, wow, that's amazing to me. 10 years working on one book. Holy moly. Okay. If you want to be an insular author, that's absolutely okay. That means, and I mean like you don't want to be on social media, you don't want to give interviews, you don't want to do, that's perfectly fine. That doesn't mean that a publisher will not publish you. There are publishers for insular authors. Absolutely, they will not mind. But you want to be clear about that. You want to say, I don't want to tour. I'm a private person, not on social media. Though likely your publisher will know that, because one of the first things publishers do right now is they're going to look you up everywhere. They're going to Google you, they're going to look you up on all the major platforms, and they're going to see where you are. Is it more attractive to publishers if someone has a big following and they actively engage people online? Yes. If they're a commercial publisher, a traditional commercial publisher, yes, they're going to want you to have at minimum 100,000 followers on at least one platform. Now I know that must sound like just a crazy number, but that's actually considered a micro influencer. Yeah. So I personally don't like social media. I still take care of my family and am the sole breadwinner for my family. Blue Forge Group is a completely volunteer-run organization. The nonprofit does not pay any staff. So I have to be able to work full-time for Blue Forge and support my family, because that's how I was raised. And I do that solely by writing. So I know it's possible to do without social media. I am on Instagram. I have a private account so that I can post cute pictures of my own food. All right, self-publisher or publisher. This is such a personal decision, but I think, Catherine, you actually said it earlier today. You said, I'm a writer and I do everything. If you thrive when you are doing everything, it is totally okay to self-publish in this day and age, because these very large companies have made it very easy for you. KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing through Amazon, and Ingram Spark. All you guys have to do is Google them. They are not going to charge you. It is free. And if you want to self-publish, you can. Ingram is the largest book distributor in the world. If you are with Ingram Spark's self-publishing service, your book will be available worldwide as long as you mark it 100% returnable. Every time a bookstore orders your book, let's say they order 10 of your books, if they return one book, you will be charged on average $15. Now, if you were a publisher, you'd be like, wow, but you'd say, oh, that's why I guess we have publishing insurance to cover returns. If you're a self-publisher and you get 100 books returned, which, by the way, you guys, is very common. That doesn't mean it's a bad book. It just means a bookstore was like, hey, Jennifer's coming to do a really cool event. Let's order 100 books and put them in the window. Cool. We sold 75. Let's return 25 because they're 100% returnable for 120 days. Now, I'm not trying to scare anybody away from self-publishing. I'm just trying to make it very, very clear. Unless you work with Ingram Spark specifically, your book will not be available to all bookstores everywhere. If you do not mark the books at Ingram Spark as 100% returnable, no chain stores such as Barnes & Noble will take the book. They must be 100% returnable. Barnes & Noble also tried to get in on this. They launched a thing called BN Press. BN Press, Barnes & Noble bookstores aren't even allowed to order from BN Press. So I always say, that is so humorous to me. This was we want a piece of that pie. That's juicy self-publishing money. Companies and people that prey on folks in the arts make me very, very angry. Because if you are artistically inclined, you have something that a lot of the population doesn't have. It's a tiny little gene deep inside you that says, art, that thing that culture tells me is relatively useless, save it for your downtime, doesn't make any money, you told your parents about it and they cried when you said that's what you wanted to do for a living. when someone has that little gene, I think it's a little bit harder to go through life because you notice things that other people don't. Anyone who preys on that kind of person is absolute bottom of the barrel to me. So, self-publishing is okay, but if you're gonna do it right, do it safe. Because guess what else Ingram Spark will do for you? Again, if you want to self-publish, they'll help you with advertising. They'll help you with your cover. They'll even suggest organizations that you can join. Now, if you're going to self-publish, you're going to need to hire a freelance editor because obviously your publishing house is you. You can't edit your own book. Your spouse can't edit your book. Your best friend can't edit your book. And sadly, your writer's group cannot edit your book. The editorial process is something that is intensive. You have to make sure there are no plot holes because you don't want to get torn apart by your reviewers.
Tools of the trade.
Tools of the trade. So tools of the trade. These are the things that I see in the community people don't have as authors. And I want to cry. And I want to say, honestly, and I want to say to people, please, writers groups, everyone, tell each other this. Share this information. Don't let your fellow writers not have these things before they publish their first story. Go on an interview show. Do an interview. A professional email account. Now, Gmail is free and it counts as a professional email account. But I like sandwiches at gmail.com or bigboatenergy at gmail.com are not appropriate addresses. You need to have something like Jennifer DeMarco at gmail.com, or if you're like me and Jennifer DeMarco at gmail.com is taken by a very nice Canadian woman who runs a crafting store, then perhaps you have J DeMarco author at gmail.com, something like that. Not Hotmail, not Yahoo, not even AOL. And the reason to use Gmail is that Gmail gives you a bunch of extra services for free that you're going to need to work with a publisher. Okay, email. Number 2, a website. So, and again, please, if you can't get jenniferdemarco.com or even jenniferdemarco.net, it doesn't even have to be .com anymore. But the best thing is your name or your pen name .com. That's the absolute best. If you can't get that, then be creative, but keep it professional. If you wanted to do just your last name, if that was available, or your name with the word author at the end, or I've even seen cute things like the worlds of, something like that, but something that is focused on your writing and you, and it's up before your first book is out. Who are you? You don't want to be on social media? One of the things I'm not going to be teaching today, you guys, is how to appropriately be on social media, because it just frustrates the heck out of me to teach that one. So I always say, you don't have to be on social media if at least you have a presence on the internet that is sharing your story. Photo, bio, one page. And guess what? Wix, Wix.com, you can do it for free. And I truly mean, even if you are not tech savvy, they will guide you through the process. And again, it's free. And for it to be free, they're going to run a little ad, across. But the ad is just for Wix. You don't have to worry about going to your website and they're advertising socks. It's just they advertise themselves. A business card. And on that business card, I guess you guys probably have already guessed what it needs, right? Your email, your website URL, and your name. And you guys, you could just do something cute. A pen, a computer. If you write only fantasy, maybe a little wizard hat. It's okay to be cute and memorable. You don't have to spend a bajillion. Vistaprint.com. Again, they even have templates. You don't need to hire someone to design it for you. It is not going to be make or break whether you use clip art on your business card. But having one is so important. And last but not least, your mission and byline. So your byline is, depending on the event, I might say, hello, Jennifer DeMarco, children's book author. Or if I'm not talking about my children's books, I'm Jennifer DeMarco, hard science fiction author. Nice to meet you. That's just my byline. That's who I am really, really fast. Your mission statement is your personal mission statement. You are standing at a table with all of your books. You are at the front of the Barnes & Noble. People are streaming by. What do you say to them? That is your mission statement. Now, I believe Dave is one of the Blue Forge Press authors that I love to smile at when I say, you guys, as people are streaming by, you don't say, excuse me, do you like to read? And Dave and some of the other authors, correct me if I'm wrong here, Dave, will say, but Jennifer, that stops people. And so I've stopped telling people not to do that. But what I tend to do is I'll say something like, I'll tie it into my headlines. I'll say, because I know that's what's on people's minds. I'll say, what crazy what AI is doing today, huh? Imagine what it's going to do in 12 years. Want to buy a book? I mean, that's me being silly, you guys, but you see what I'm saying. It's a catchy statement about the content of your work. When we published Christine's book, Flight of the Crow, and she was talking about her mother and her father, and specifically her father's experience in a Japanese camp right here in Washington State. And I looked at Christine across the little meeting table and went, wait, what? She was like, did you grow up in Washington? I said, I did. Did you go to public schools in Washington? I said, I did. How do I not already know everything? And then she's explaining to me how her dad attended the same high school my dad did. Now, at different times, but I was just like, amazing. But imagine the statement that you would need to say. Do you think you know the history of Washington? Something that's really going to grab people in. So I always say, no, have that little mission statement for, if not each of your books, each genre of your books. You know, like let's say, like you, Dave, I know that you have several. You'd have a mystery statement, and then more of a biblical fiction statement. You know, you wouldn't use the same for both, even though there are some religious themes certainly in Robert Curtis. And for Bells of Redemption, a third. All right, you guys.
Develop your IDEA.
I have a lot of fun with this. This is developing your initial idea, because we're not even at the idea. I know that most everyone in this room probably already has a book written or is engaged in actively writing one, but we're going to pretend we're all starting at the beginning. I always say develop your idea, and I do it as an acronym, IDEA, just because, again, you guys, sometimes I'm teaching the course to high schoolers and things like this. And I always say it's insight and inspiration, durability and desire, expertise and execution, adaptability and angle. Is it a good idea? There's a buzz phrase going around, idea testing. You guys, maybe that has popped up in your guys' writer group before, is sometimes writers groups will say, hey, let's do a couple months of idea testing, where everyone will pitch ideas to each other. And I'm like, well, you can do that, absolutely. But remember, ultimately, you have to be passionate about what you're going to write. And we run into time and time again, authors in very supportive and wonderful writers groups that they turn in a manuscript and they're, I've done everything my writers group told me to do. And I'm like, can we see the draft before you did everything your writers group told you to do? Because this has no voice. There's no unique style. This is textbook out of Creative Writing 101. It has no passion. What was that spark that originally made you think about this idea? Is an idea viable? What does that mean? Do you want to retire? Or retire? Let's pretend we're all retired right now. What I mean when I say retired is like to the Bahamas. Are we talking about we want Stephen King, Danielle Steele type money with our idea? Or are we saying, I want a really cool experience of writing a book based on this idea that I am going to enjoy the journey of writing as much as I enjoy sitting at that Barnes & Noble table and selling that book to the people who pass by. So that's what I'm talking about. So insight and inspiration. Do you have insight into this topic? This is how to test your idea yourself without it winding up being diluted by a bunch of other opinions who are not going to be the ones who are writing your book. Insight and inspiration. Do you have insight into this topic? What was your inspiration? And I literally do write these things down. I'll be like, yeah, my inspiration was my Nona's cookies, and then also seeing that same kind of cookie years later at Pike Place Market, whatever it was. Durability and desire. The durability is, does this idea stand up when I really think about it? Can I really get 50,000 words or more out of this idea? What else does this idea need? Will other people desire to read this? Will I be excited to write it? Huge red flag is if an author says to me, well, after I write something, I don't reread it because that's so boring. I'm like, are you really sitting across from me right now? Young man, no. Okay. Well, my spouse reads everything that I write and, she edits it. It's fantastic. And I'm like, no, that's wonderful. May we all have someone in our lives that will read everything we write. But, okay, so there has to be a desire to write it, and you think people will be excited to read it. Expertise and execution. Write what you know, the adage is. Write what you can research and are willing to research. If you want to write about a baker, then walk into as many bakeries as you can and find bakers that will speak to you. Interview those bakers. Ask them, and be clear, I am an author, I am writing a book. Guess what? How fast people say yes. It is incredible how many, as we say, red card buildings we have been granted access to as writers when we just want someone's expertise. I think probably all of us will agree if someone says, I really would love your expertise on this. We go, oh, well, thank you. Yes. So, and I, obviously make sure that you keep very close track of all the people that you interview so that you can thank them in your professional acknowledgments. That should go without saying. But again, if you can research it, you can write it. But this isn't weekend warrior research. This isn't, I Googled it. Guys, no, don't just Google it. Really, really deep dive. Try to find human beings, because remember, especially right now, are you Googling it and getting answers from AI? Because we've had authors turn manuscripts in and we're like, oh, guys, that's not how you get an Uber. It's okay if you've never taken an Uber, but you can't write about getting an Uber if you don't know how to get an Uber. You need to look into, how do I get an Uber? Little things like that, but then also big things. Guys, there's not a steering wheel like that on a motorcycle. No three people can't squish close together and ride on a Kawasaki 250. The Kawasaki's going to go like this. Okay. And then last is adaptability and angle. Adaptability is, think about, is this best as a novel? Is this a novel or is it a novella? Is it a short story? The angle. Now, the final thing, what is your unique angle on this topic? Because I always feel, if you can say, oh, anyone could write this book, oh, then don't. Right? We're only here for such a short time. I published a story several years ago with a line that, this is a height of author hubris here. My own line I have printed out and stuck to my work desk. And it says, it took a long time and no time at all, just like a lifetime. And I feel that we are here for a precious time, and we were put here to do things that only we can do. If you're just doing something that someone else can do, I guess that's wonderful, but I guess in my mind, then you're a writer, not an author. An author is someone who says, I am building a legacy, and only I can build this legacy because only I am me. There's only, you guys know this adage, of course, all the great stories have been told. Yes, there are archetypes and tropes, but an archetype and a trope are not a story. And every story has not been told, because if you haven't told it, it hasn't been told. Okay.
Genre research.
So our next section is on genre research. This is where I usually lose most of my folks, because they say, wait, you're serious? This is like a college course, becoming an author. Why do I have to do so much work? And I'm like, because it's a real job. And that is, I think, one of the fallacies of being an author, is that it's put out there that it's kind of like, it is like a hobby just at its core. And I'm like, no, it's a lot of work at its core. So your genre research. So now you have your idea and you're like, okay, I like this idea. This is a good idea. But what genre is it? And why do I care? Well, first, what is a genre? A genre is how your book will be categorized by the whole world. Because, sadly, though it is precious to us, the industry has to be able to move it like a product, not like a gift to the world. And I say, what is a genre? What is a subgenre? Go to a bookstore, go online. Now, a genre is something big: science fiction, fantasy, romance. Every single one of those three in particular, have dozens of subgenres: sports romance, war romance, space romance, science fiction fantasy, that's like a hybrid, hard science fiction, that's what I write, horror science fiction, that's scary science fiction, and you might post-apocalyptic science fiction, as we were talking about. Why is this important? Well, it's important because you need to know who you're going to be shelved next to. But let's circle back. How do I find a list of all the genres? Well, you can do this two ways. One, go to a Barnes & Noble. Now, I would love to name another bookstore that is a large chain store. And like me, I'm sure most of you guys remember Walden's, B. Dalton's. I know Elliott Bay is still there, but I feel like it's really changed. A large independent. Take yourself to the biggest bookstore you can find, and I usually do ask people, try to find a Barnes & Noble, because Barnes & Noble mirror Ingram's categories. Because it's wonderful, independent stores, again, like Elliott Bay, or let's see, is it Liberty Bay?
Yeah.
Liberty Bay. Or even used bookstores like Bookham and Port Orchard that we love. They all have genres, but they don't mimic Ingram's genres. So the best way there is go to Barnes & Noble and walk the store. You could have a notebook. Oh, okay. What are their genres? But here's another way to do it. Go to Amazon. At the very top, where you put in what you want to buy, the little search field, there's a little arrow. If you click that, you can select books. A lot of people don't know that when you go to Amazon and like we'll have an author say, hey, I typed in my very unique title, the recruitment of CeCe Leone, which is a film we just did, and my book didn't come up. And I'm like, do you know how many things are at Amazon? How many trillions of products are at Amazon? And that poor little Amazon search engine is like, what do they want? This recruitment of the recruitment, a book, or something like this. But if you select books, then it will only search books. But what's even better is that if you select books, and then you click that arrow again under books, it says there's a selection called categories. And categories lists every genre that Amazon posts in and catalogs in. Those categories are BISAC codes, and they are a secondary kind of genre. That's not important for you guys to know, though it is important for a publisher to know. So find your genre so that you know, let's put it in American competitive terms, so that you know who your competitors are. Now, we always say to our authors, you have no competitors. You're not competing with anyone, because we don't backlist books. If you don't sell 5,000 copies in your first 6 months, we don't have your title go out of print. We keep books in print indefinitely. That's who we are. Now, at that corporate press that I was signed at, and all corporate presses to this day, if your book does not sell X number of units in the first 6 months, it is moved to backlist. If it stays on backlist for more than 1 calendar year, it is allowed to go out of print. However, whether or not I want you to have a competition mindset, you need to know who your book is going to be on the shelves next to. If every book in your genre has a 2-word title, maybe don't give your book a 10-word title. It's that fit in, stand out phenomenon. Mm-hmm. I also want you to take this opportunity, look at your covers, because unless you go with a corporate house is not going to allow you to have say into your cover. But if you go with an independent house, they're going to allow you to have say into your cover. I always say the most important thing is that you love your cover. However, I better not do that. We brought some books today, and I was going to show you some books, and I was going to say, here are some books that the authors love the cover, because we worked to make sure they got the cover they loved. And because they love it, they sell that book hard. They hold it up. They've got it in pictures. Every social media post they do, they've got their book in some way, right? But I don't like the cover. I hate the cover. Cannot stand it. Would never have done it. However, the cover looks good for that genre. It stands out, but fits in. It doesn't look self-published. And we'll get to that, actually, what I mean by that today. But you need to know what the covers in your genre look like. And you need to know the length of the book. Like if you're writing a 300,000 word tome, and every other book in your genre is a novella, maybe you have a series of books? Things to consider.
Beta readers and freelance editors.
For our last section in the Forging Authors Instruction Manual in Brief, preparing, beta readers and freelance editors. So one of the things that we've already touched on this a little bit, where we're talking about, I always say, be very careful with your beta readers. I think it's a wonderful resource to have a writer's group and being able to hand out your book. They'll catch things for you, little plot holes, things like this. But I always say, so art is subjective. Don't do your work twice. Don't lose your voice, and ask questions. When you give someone a piece of writing for feedback, probably one of the biggest mistakes authors make is they take their piece of writing, they hand it over, and they say, I'd love your feedback. No. Okay, so you are a professional. You are an author, or striving to be an author, not just a writer. So you have your writing, you hand it over, and you say, thank you so much for saying that you would give me feedback on this piece. I'm concerned Is Joyce empathetic? Are you empathetic toward Joyce? Do you think I should give her a pet because she lives alone and actually it seems like a very sterile environment? And also, do you think that the third scene where she's trapped in the broom closet because she was chasing the butterfly, do you think that drags, or is it believable? And be nice. Write the questions down for the person giving you feedback. If someone gives you feedback, they return the work to you, and they don't answer your questions, then they are not helping you. They are helping themselves. They like being asked for their opinion. If you don't ask them questions and they just give you general feedback, that's just their opinion. They're not your editor. They're not your publisher. Your editor and your publisher might tell you to do the exact opposite of what that beta reader did. Beta readers are there to help you reach your vision, not make your book their book. We have one author in particular who works with both our film division and our book division. She had a script and I was like, this is the blandest script. Where is the meat? Where is the I wouldn't watch this. It's only 14 minutes. It's an ultra short film. And I don't want to produce it. I don't want to green light it because I don't want to watch it. It's boring. And because we had worked with this author for more than 10 years, I sat down with them one-on-one and I said, honey, this is boring. This is bland. What happened? She said, this happened 1 minute in the original version, and everyone told me that, and I'm like, who is everyone? Get rid of all the everyones in your life and find people that are here to help you tell your story. These folks that are like, I know the industry, I'm an expert, I can tell you how to make it. No, they can't. Not unless they're saying, hi, I'm the senior editor at this press. I know what I'm looking for, and I know that your book is what I'm looking for, so I can help you get published. One of the things that I feel drain authors beyond vanity presses, those presses that say, hey, just give us, we're a hybrid. Just give us a couple $1,000, a couple $100. We'll give you a bunch of copies of your books. And I'm like, it doesn't matter because everyone knows you're a vanity press, and so the book will not be seriously received. Beyond that waste of money, the biggest waste of money that we see time and time again is authors hire an editor before sending it to a publishing house. Now, you can say, no, Jennifer, I'm a very rough writer. I failed high school English. I don't know what an Oxford comma is. I think M dashes are only used by AI. And I hire an editor because I have a rough manuscript. Okay, is your editor doing blue pencil or red pencil? Your hired editor. Red pencil or blue pencil? Red pencil is going through your manuscript and saying, in red pen or pencil, Jennifer, this scene is slow, I'm bored. Jennifer, you said this character was 18 and living in Boston, but here she refers to her late teens being spent in Chicago. Okay, plot holes, pacing, theme. Jennifer, this is not how you take an Uber. Jennifer, in 1989, this is not how much a movie ticket was. Okay, a red pencil editor, that's what they're doing. A blue pencil editor is doing everything that Grammarly can do for you. Grammarly is a software program. They're checking your grammar, your spelling, your punctuation. Hopefully, they're also checking things that a lot of editors, sadly, freelance editors do wrong, like dialogue tags. We still frequently see people that do not understand how to properly use a dialogue tag. If you are a reader, an avid reader, especially an avid reader in your genre, which means you have expertise in your genre, you should know, looking at your manuscript, if your formatting is correct or not. Because you should be able to look at a page and go, oh, I see. Quotation mark, what time is it? Question mark, quotation. People don't close their dialogue, or they think that all dialogue needs to be followed with he said.
No.
She said. Said how? He enthused, he shouted, or we'll have someone say something like, he shook his head. No, I would never do that. Why does he have to shake his head and say no? You know, it's like little things like that. If you are hiring a freelance editor, then you are, in the best case scenario, knowing, okay, this is my Achilles heel. This is my weakness. I just want a freelance editor. It is worth it for me to pay them $200 to $600 to go over my entire 150,000 word manuscript and make sure it's as clean as possible before I send it off. $1.25 a manuscript page is industry standard to pay a freelance editor. A manuscript page has 1-inch margins all around and is double spaced, and it uses a font that is a 12-point sans serif. Okay. That's a very expensive investment, and we actually usually don't recommend it for any reason. We recommend buy Grammarly. Get yourself a monthly subscription to Grammarly and go over the manuscript with Grammarly. Grammarly will pull out any spelling error. Sure, spell check does that. That's free with pretty much every software we have. But Grammarly will also check your surprise grammar, your dialogue tags, and that is that little extra push. Now, that's not going to give you red pencil editing, plot, pacing, things like that, but it will give you a clean manuscript that will not embarrass you. Okay. Always ask, I'm sorry, of course. How could I forget? If you do use a hired freelance editor, they should either have a degree in English at minimum. Someone who's just really smart at writing probably shouldn't be your editor, and this is why. Writers and editors are two different things. Editors are not wannabe writers. They're not, I teach because I cannot do. They are editors. They love that feeling of going through and polishing something, helping you find your voice. If they do not have a degree in English or creative writing or teaching, I think I would even go. And I understand that there are degrees specifically in editing. I include those in degrees in writing. So if they have that and you hire them and you give them the manuscript, do questions. Ask them those questions that you would have asked those beta readers. But maybe you have, if it's a 1,000-page manual, maybe you have 100 questions. Really, really think about it and say, this is what I want answered. This is what I'm interested in. Guide them. Get your money's worth. Okay, that's it for this section.
This ends Era 1. Please continue to the next video in the playlist for Eras 2 and 3.